It starts with a step, then another step, and then another that add up like taps on a drum to a rhythm. The rhythm of walking. Walking that wanders so readily into religion, philosophy, landscape, urban policy, anatomy, allegory, and heartbreak. The history of walking is an unwritten, secret history whose fragments can be found in 1,000 unemphatic passages in books, as well as in songs, streets, and almost in everyone's adventures. Most of the time, walking is merely practical, the unconsidered locomotive means between two sites. To make walking into an investigation, a ritual, a mediation, is a special subset of walking. Here, this history begins to become part of the history of the imagination and the culture of what kind of pleasure, freedom, and meaning are pursued at different times by different kinds of walks and walkers. What's hidden beneath the cracks? Layers of pavements and old paths of the city. The Roman wall. What's left? Traces. Remnants hidden away in a car park. Forgotten and untold stories get buried under all the layers of history. Traces of what once used to be remnants. Each corner of the city has its own story to tell. Pay attention to the detail, the alignment of objects in the street, layers of paint, the layers of graffiti. Council cover-ups leave their own mark, a blank canvas for new stories to unfold. There's a conversation between the graffiti artist and the council. How does the city become a palimpsest of memories, a living archive where personal and collective histories converge? Walking around the city, I would often notice a lot of graffiti on boarded-up shops and fences that have been painted over by the council. Most of the times, the paint is a different color than the original background, and the strokes of paint are sloppy and uneven, hastily covering the graffiti. In an attempt to hide vandalism, the council provides a new canvas for street artists with their seemingly obvious cover-ups. The invisible layers of narrative give rise to a sense of mystery and intrigue. What was written on these walls? Who was it written by and why? Layers upon layers of paint and graffiti lost. These are the elements that challenge our perception of the visible and the hidden, urging us to contemplate the transient nature of art and the impermanence of the urban environment. Each stroke of the paint becomes a visual testament to the countless narratives that often go unheard and overlooked in the city, and its temporality in the passage of time. Elizabeth House in York Road, Waterloo, is a prime example of this conversation between the graffiti artists and the council, as well as the idea of abandonment and lost narratives. The 203-meter-long building was built on a vacant site caused by a World War II rocket attack in 1944, which killed 3 people and injured 48. I wonder how many stories are buried beneath the rubble, and how many have been buried under the countless layers of paint. The 8-story office building was designed by Jean Poussin in the 1960s. Currently, the public realm around the site is a dull and hostile environment. The only thing adding life to this site is the graffiti. It is uncertain what caused the closure of this building, which was used for offices and retail units. In an attempt to figure out why, no answers were found. I then decided to explore the site on Google Maps Street View and noticed that most of the shops closed in 2020 after COVID hit. The most likely reason of abandonment of that space would be the pandemic and lack of funding for repair from the council. Space is not empty, but full of disturbing objects and forms, among which the forms of architecture and the city take their place. The arts of representation, in their turn, are drawn to depict such subject-object disturbances, themselves distorting the conventional ways in which space has been described since the Renaissance. What are these urban encounters? Obstruction in the urban landscape. What is it that gets in our way? Barriers. Who put them there and why? Barriers can be viewed as a symbol, as the representations of obstacles in our life. Symbols. What do they represent in the cityscapes of our mind? Everyone has their own personal memories and recollections of encounters in the city. What are these strange objects? Where do they come from? What is their story? What is so strange about them? Where does this sense of hyperreality come from? Is it the lighting? Is it the objects themselves? Or is it that moment of strangeness where you can't quite figure out what is drawing your attention to these objects? Is it the color? Is it purely just the fact that it has been designed to grab your attention? These are objects that are made for that purpose, to alert the urban walker. These were places where something could happen, or had happened, or both. What about that sausage roll on top of the bus stop? How did it get there? What is its story? Maybe some children were fooling about. You can always just assume and imagine what happened. That aubergine in the middle of the street might have its own story to tell. What has it seen? A lot of the times, these objects take on a sculptural form. I like to think of objects as having a life of their own. Let me talk to you about a view from the window. It all started with a broken manhole. It was covered with a cone. Then the red barrier made its appearance. Then it stayed like that for weeks, unbothered, obstructing the urban landscape and the passerby's paths. The barrier expanded in size, spreading across the pavement. Now no one can get past. 1, 2 days. It's gone now. I think I might miss it. I wonder if it will too. Hyperreality manifests in various forms within the urban landscape, often catching us off guard and prompting a reassessment of our perceptions. For instance, reflections in windows can create optical illusions, presenting distorted versions of reality that challenge our understanding of space and depth. The interplay of light and shadows can further contribute to this sense of hyperreality, casting surreal environments that seem detached from the ordinary. The most mundane or intangible encounters in a city can also take on a hyperreal quality, leaving us questioning the authenticity of what we've just experienced. Whether it is encountering a street performer or stumbling upon a bizarre juxtaposition of elements, these moments disrupt our sense of reality and invite us to reconsider the nature of our urban environment. The comical aspect of hyperreality adds another layer of complexity to these encounters. The absurdity of certain situations can invoke laughter as we grapple with the paradoxical nature of the urban landscape. In a world where the boundaries between real and the simulated are increasingly blurred, humor becomes a coping mechanism, allowing us to navigate the surrealities of modern urban life. Experiencing hyperreality in urban encounters requires keen observation and an artistic eye attuned to detail. Being on the lookout involves active engagement with our surroundings, uncovering hidden layers of meaning in the mundane. Cultivating an artistic sensibility fosters a deeper connection to the cityscape, transforming everyday moments into opportunities for inspiration and creativity. Overall, the experience of hyperreality in urban landscapes offers a vantage point for reflection and exploration, contributing to a more nuanced appreciation of our surroundings, ultimately enriching our understanding of the world around us. These are all the little moments in our urban encounters in the city that create the bigger picture and the cityscapes of our mind.